First, I would like to welcome all of you to the 159th graduation ceremonies of our schools, the Doane Stuart School. A notable achievement in itself for a notable and wonderful senior class. I'd like to also take this opportunity of welcoming alumni who may be in the audience. If you are an alumnus or alumna of our school, could you please stand? Welcome all. I don't know what other former faculty members are here, but I heard a hint that the fourth grade teacher of several of these young people, when they were very young, is here. Mrs. Hines, are you in the audience? And other members, former members of the faculty. Also perhaps my opportunity to say what each of you have already said many times and will say again. The people seated across the side of our chapel have made your lives richer, fuller, not just better educated, but better. Ladies and gentlemen of the faculty, please accept our thanks. I'd also like to thank Senor Fibri for the beautiful organ music as a prelude to our ceremony, and I'd like to thank Matt McGuire for his extraordinary playing this morning. And in anticipation, I would like to thank Alexis Brown, class of 20, who will be offering the benediction with me. Alexis, why don't you stand up right now so people can see that you're here. Yes. This before, but I've done a welcome or even a speech. I'm going to ask you to follow along with me. The poem is printed at the end. It is our benediction, and it's about to form the subject of my welcome. It's a prayer. It's a prayer that was written in the era and reign of Henry V of England, who reigned from 1387 till 1422. Which makes this one of the oldest hymns and prayers in print in the English language. It's in its original form in the British Library from the 14th century. There with the rather archaic English, and please read with me. Adam lay bounden in a bond, 4,000 winter, thought he not too long. And all was for an apple that he took, as clerks finden written in their book. Never had the apple taken then, never Our Lady been heaven's queen. Blessed be the time that apple taken was. Therefore, we mourn singing, Deo gratias. Adam lay abandoned, the poem and the hymn. It references Adam's great mistake, his great error, his great sin, obviously. And yet it very clearly refers to that sin in a way that at first seems to even trivialize the fall of man. Actually, though, it glorifies the fall of man. The hymn recounts merely the eating of an apple. And yet it also says that the eating of that apple was so very significant because in medieval theology, Adam was supposed to have remained in bonds for 4,000 winters. That is, from the time of Adam's death after the expulsion from Eden until Christ's crucifixion and resurrection. The eating of the apple was certainly a significant occasion for God's very real demonstration of dissatisfaction with his servant Adam. As the song and the hymn and the prayer say, all this for an apple? Think how much trouble you have every day because Adam ate that apple. It seems almost ridiculous, and yet what is sin? What are our sins? What are our flaws? What are our faults that can lead even to our fall, to our degradation, to the end of all our best hopes? Sometimes they are dramatic, terrible acts, but other times they are simple, trivial acts of unkindness, acts of hate, acts of disrespect, acts of prejudice and bigotry, acts of mistrust, acts that are a failure of compassion, acts as seemingly insignificant as the eating of apple. To this hymn's credit, it recognizes that the most seemingly incidental act of inconsideration can cause dramatic, life-altering effects. But what to me is even more remarkable about this hymn is that it also recognizes that had this act of transgression on Adam's part not occurred, had this failure by Adam not been his personal history, so much else that is good in Adam's story and in the history of mankind never could have occurred. The third verse says that the subsequent redemption of man by the birth of Jesus Christ through the offices of his mother Mary could never have happened had Adam not eaten the apple. The Queen of Heaven could not sit in her protective throne were it not for Adam having failed and then redeemed himself from failure. So, what has this got to do with you graduating? You know, it's very normal for speakers to stand in a place like this and say, "The bright hopes of America now await you. The next generation of leaders go forward in greatness to even success upon excess. God bless you," and go. So I'm not saying that. You too, class of 2012, you'll make mistakes. You'll make small mistakes. You'll make big mistakes. Some of these mistakes will have life-altering repercussions for you. The mere apple, whatever your apple is, the mere apple taken, made for you, yield disastrous consequences for your life. But even if the most simple transgression and the most simple failure seems to plague you and your future, something you've already done, some boneheaded move, or one you're about to commit, or one that you will commit for years, I want you to know these two things. You are bound, as much as Adam was, to make mistakes. You are as bound as he was for 4,000 years. You are bound to fall. But like him, you will rise. There is always God's hope, that abiding hope for redemption, with which each of us is blessed. Your mistakes, your errors, your flaws, your failures, they can become your singular cause for celebration. Because they can be the very things that can make you a better woman, a better man. They can redeem you and give you a chance to rise anew as a completely different person filled with God's love. You can be, ironically, and as this hymn suggests, blessed by the very thing which seemingly has cursed you. Whether it be a person, whether it be an event beyond your control, or a sin of your own making, I'm going to tell you now to go forward, but don't rely so much on a likely success as you go forward. Rely instead, count on the idea that you will have failures. You will fall. But when you do fall, you will be given an opportunity that may be your best bet, your best hope for making yourself into the person you really wish to be. The benediction that Alexis will sing to us today will be this hymn from Henry V's England. May it inspire us still to understand the great and glorious purpose of God's promise to us through faith, through hope, through charity, these three. We can rise because we will fall. Deo gratias. Thank God. It's now my pleasure to introduce Tim Halterman, Lacey Phibbs, and Ryan Wan to deliver the senior class reflection.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Before I get started, I just want to say congratulations, class of 2012. You finally get to leave. Thank you to all of you for being here on this momentous occasion. I guess I should give special thanks to those who had to put up with me talking for longer than a few minutes. I want to thank my parents, my siblings, wonderful faculty, staff, and most of all, my classmates. Thinking back on the past 8 years I've spent at Doane Stuart, I've come to many conclusions. All of us, in some way or another, have become part of a special family, much of which is gathered here today. Some of the friends we've made here, like Dan or Christine, have been here forever. Others have been more recent additions to our already amazing class, like Kush, with a sometimes too peppy guy working behind the register at Moe's. We've made some great memories here, and of course, at the local restaurants around East Greenbush. Another thought that popped into my head while completing my academia was the overarching shadow left by my brother, my first 4 years at Doane Stuart. Many of you know my brother Chip, who was a graduate of the class of 2008. As a young and even younger-looking middle school student, I was always greeted with a, "Hi, baby Chip," or "You look just like your brother." I was finally exuberant to see him go off to college. I thought that now that I was in high school, my whole world would be different. I remember looking around freshman year and seeing all the familiar faces and realizing nothing changed at all. Sure, we had new teachers, but we were still the same old class who spent Friday nights at Andrew's house. I was the same old Tim. Skipping ahead now to this year, we're seniors getting ready to go off on our journey to college. As the cliche goes, this is the first day of the rest of our lives. Yet, when I attended my brother's college graduation a few weekends ago and saw some of his friends, I was still baby Chip. "You look so alike," they teased. Of course, here it goes again, another milestone, another letdown. After all that growing and working out at the gym, I'm still just a little boy. But you know what? This is different. Way different. No more familiar faces, no more witty exchanges with teachers we know. We're all on our own. But I think each and every one of us is prepared for the future and for college. We are ready to confront new challenges, and now this is the time to cherish what we have achieved in the past years of Doane Stuart. These people here today are the people that have truly helped us to achieve greatness, and we will continue to remember them in years to come. Thank you to everyone. And in the famous words of Michael Island winning his tennis match, there we go!
It was a blustery day in the 100-acre wood. Those probably are not the first words you expected to hear from me today, but nonetheless, it was a blustery day in the 100-acre wood when Sue and Christopher Robin climbed up their favorite tree and began to chat. Christopher Robin had to tell Sue some very important news. He would be going to school the next day for the very first time. and was worried about leaving his friends alone. Unable to do so, Christopher Robin simply left Pooh with the assurance that their friendship could handle anything. The following morning, however, Pooh awoke to a large pot of honey, and a note that left him rather confused. He brought the note to Owl, the smartest of the bunch, who could decipher anything. Owl read the note and came to the conclusion that Christopher Robin had been taken against his will to the dangerous, mysterious land called the Skull, which is known to be guarded by the dreaded Skelosaurus. Pooh and all of his friends set out on an adventure to save Christopher Robin from the evil Skelosaurus and found themselves spending the night in a cave that tested their courage, strength, and intelligence. In the morning when they awoke, they realized they had just spent the night in the exact place they were searching for, Skull Cave, and began to split up and search for Christopher Robin, whom they all eventually find, despite the bumps and obstacles along the way. When they all emerged from the cave together, they realized it was not as big, nor as scary as it had seemed, and are all relieved when Christopher Robin explained that the note had read, "Gone to school," not skull, like Owl had thought. Pooh then understood that Christopher Robin must go back to school the following day, but promised to always wait for him in the 100-acre wood. Now for a little explanation as to why I chose to waste a minute and 30 seconds of your time summarizing the Winnie the Pooh movie, as if Winnie the Pooh could ever be a waste of anyone's time. When I was asked to speak today, this was the very first thing that entered my mind. A Winnie the Pooh movie I'd seen at about age 5, but something I will always remember. Everything in the movie had a completely different meaning in that one instance when I realized graduation was right around the corner. It became clear, at least in my mind, that I was like Christopher Robin. I too had gone to school, high school, which is known by most as a dangerous, mysterious land that tests one's courage, strength, and intelligence. Sound familiar? I too had support that came to help me through it, and quirky characters there to help me find my way. Characters like Pooh, who for me represent the friends that I'm leaving behind, may result in the hardest goodbyes, but I know these strong friendships will remain, and we will always have a 100-acre wood. Christine and Caitlin? No. As for the owl, the wise, extravagant owl, Mr. Levy has filled this role for me. He has inspired me to learn in a different way, and has encouraged me to spark new adventures, both inside and even outside the classroom. A clear representation of the rabbit was Miss Bracken, who managed to organize my class and get us headed in the right direction. As for Kanga, the warm, nurturing, supportive character who gave advice when needed and kept me safe along the way, Miss Philippa was the front runner. Tigger, now that's a character, could only be filled by Miss Carr, whose bubbly personality and loyalty always kept a smile on my face. Eeyore, who was fairly down most of the time because of his misplaced tail, could represent only one thing: my parents. My parents, too, will temporarily lose something, me, as I make my way to college. But they must remember that Eeyore's tail was never really lost. He always found it in the end, and I will always return. And last, but certainly not least, Piglet, who I admit I struggled with a bit in the beginning. However, I realized that Piglet, the timid, nervous, and somewhat hesitant Piglet, was actually in all of us. We must remember that Piglet, with the help of all of the other characters, overcame his nerves and made it through the cave just as we have and just as we will again. So now as I emerge from the cave, I'm in high school, I now realize that it's not as scary as it had seemed. But it's time to go back to school once again, so I will leave you with the words Christopher Robin said to Pooh the night before his big adventure began. This is not just directed to my fellow classmates, who I will certainly miss, but it is also directed towards my teachers, who have inspired me in more ways than I can count. The Doane Stuart community, which has been my 100-acre wood for the last 7 years, and also towards my entire family, who have helped me accept the things I cannot change, encouraged me to change the things that I can, and taught me the wisdom to know the difference. If ever there is tomorrow when we're not together, there is something you must always remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. But the most important thing is, even if we're apart, I'll always be with you. Thank you.
think maybe this is the first time that Doane forgets. It's really the first time. So, 2 weeks ago, probably it was Thursday, I walked into the senior lounge and found a letter on the board asking me to make a speech for graduation. So I asked my friends, what should I write about? And every single one of them told me that, oh, you should write in Korean so nobody can understand. Just say, Mina speak in English. Thank you. So then I was thinking, what should I say for the speech? Because I'm not Steve Jobs who made a wonderful speech, and I'm not that great person. So I'm just a high school kid graduating this year, and so I'll tell you guys my story. It's not great, not impressive, but I simply wrote about what this school was for me. Because people often ask me, why did I pick Doane Stuart when I first came to America? It is a typical school. The school teaches us literature, sciences, histories, economics, religions, and so on. But the most important lesson from the school is that we learn how to be ourselves. For me, this is the first school telling the students that not just be a polite or smart kid, but be yourself. Follow your own passion. Doane School is a small school. The strongest benefit from its small size is that everyone has their own characters. The school knows that everyone has potential. In this school, everyone is a leader in one shape or another. And all of us are constantly influencing each other, impacting one another with enthusiasm so that new interest develops. The school allows students to easily create their own projects, clubs, or independent studies. So despite the size of the school, we have more clubs and activities than any other larger school has. Even the faculty members pursue their own interests, creating their own independent process. This is our school. Here, we learn, enjoy, laugh, and now we're about to graduate. 4 years ago, we never thought this day would come. We were young freshmen, putting all kinds of textbooks in oversized backpacks, holding the schedules, we were searching for classrooms. Now we're ready to go outside. We have grown up physically and intellectually, and we're now more mature. It's my honor to represent my class to say thank all faculties, administration, and the best class of 2012 for making the best high school year of my life. Again, I want to say congratulations to all my friends. Thank you.
Seamus Hodgkinson, Mr. H, has been a pillar of our community for every one of those years. His career, as I say, began at Doane Stuart just as the school started its journey as the only successfully merged Protestant Catholic school in our nation. Seamus, as most of you know, left Belfast in the 1970s, and I say this in quote, to escape the Troubles. But he's never really tried to escape the reality of the necessity of bringing people to a better understanding of love, peace, and reconciliation. The Irish Exchange Program at Doane Stuart represents his passionate dream, somewhat delayed, but nonetheless a dream now fulfilled, to advance the cause of reconciliation and peace. Inspired by the Troubles, Mr. H has continued to advance the message of the exchange, both through his sponsorship of it and through his own life. This program has grown, first bringing students from Logan College in Belfast to us, one Catholic, one Protestant each year, and then sending students from Doane Stuart to Belfast in February 2009. In March 2010, we extended the program even further, welcoming our first Irish student teachers from the Protestant Stranmillis and the Roman Catholic St. Mary's University College in Belfast. The winner of the prestigious annual Anne Frank Award for promoting tolerance, Seamus is an avid marathon runner, a dedicated educator, do I even need to say such stuff? An expert soccer coach, long-standing leader with his wife Patty of our middle school. His commitment to building tolerance, understanding, and community. He may not have been able to transform Belfast, but he's transformed Doane Stuart. The proud parents of Katie, class of 97, who's with us today, Bridget, class of 6, and Dan, who graduates today, it's my pleasure to introduce Seamus Hodgkinson.
This feeling you wish you'd gone first. The good news is there's plenty of water up here. That's an inside joke from Thursday. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Richard, and thank you to all. To parents, to the families, to the faculty, and especially to our graduating seniors. I'm privileged to be here to share this day with you. I'm sure some of you thought it was a cruel joke when you heard that the guest speaker was going to be a teacher. And for some of you, one you had for a long time. In fact, one person there longer than anyone else, right? Here you are, just about to escape that great freedom that back is in the other side of 12th grade, and you're being dragged back just at the last moment, and to middle school of all places. Since you're stuck here, though, why don't you think of this as one last class, just for old time's sake? And I'll even throw in a little show and tell, just to take you back. I have many memories of this wonderful group of seniors in middle school, but one mold they did not break was the inability to catch my comedic gems. I still see the looks of confused ignorance as my brilliant humor whizzed over heads and flopped. Right, Andrew? That's why I'm a little scared to start with a joke this morning, but here goes. The rivalry between the English, the Scots, and the Irish is well known. And a few years ago, the Scots archaeologists reported that they had dug 5 meters into a swamp in the Highlands and discovered traces of insulated wire, which they concluded suggested an advanced telephone system. Not long after that, the English quickly announced that their archaeologists had dug 15 meters into a swamp in the Lake District and discovered evidence of copper wire, which they suggested, concluded that the English had a sophisticated computer system 200 years ago. The Scots had said 100. So it wasn't long before the Irish announced that they had, their archaeologists had dug into a bog in the County Kerry, and they had found absolutely nothing. And they concluded that 300 years ago, the Irish were already wireless. some themes I'd like to reflect on this morning as you complete one journey of discovery and begin another. First, celebrate how far this first journey, which ends today, has brought you. Go back to your kindergarten self and recall days of simple certainty and blissful innocence. No one rocked the boat. Remember middle school years when life was edgy and sometimes surly and often confusing? The boat was always sinking. And suddenly you're here, graduating into a world which awaits your promise and your possibility. You're captains of the boat. In those same years, your understanding of the world has evolved dramatically. From the simple black and white view as seen through those kindergarten eyes, and you're going to think about that from time to time, to the fuzzy shades of grey which you now realize are the true reality. Like those Irish archaeologists, you now know that sometimes the absence of information or facts or even stuff may only be the beginning of the story. Welcome to the world where nothing is simple anymore. Also in the past 2 decades, you have been guinea pigs in a great technological tsunami, which is producing a literal sea change in how you live. The pace has been frantic. At your fingertips are tools and toys which were not even a pipe dream when you were born. And it continues. Think about it. As your iPods and smartphones and Xboxes join cassette tapes and car phones and floppy disks and the scrap heap of silly ideas, can you even imagine what your children will be expecting under the tree in 2030? What comes after plugged in and wireless? All teachers are both warriors and dreamers. And I'm here today with a little bit of both. The runaway technology, which is a celebration of our species, also places strains on how we live as people of honest integrity. So I guess today I would like to reflect with our graduate seniors on how you will best balance those competing forces. The instant, intrusive, certainly inclusive, and yet potentially isolating world of your culture, and the world of the heart and spirit, which will keep you grounded in the good essentials. I do not really come with advice, but just a collection of personal insights, some of which I hope will linger in your thoughts in the years to come. I speak as a scientist and a lover of words. I'm a believer in the spiritual. And it probably helps that I'm Irish and a runner. Let me explain that last one. Exactly a month ago at this moment, I was 5 hours into a 29-mile trail run through 3 states. I composed most of these reflections on that journey. I guess that's what you call multitasking. In Ecclesiastes we read, there is nothing new under the sun. And indeed I believe that the big ideas for living well are already out there for all of us to explore, regardless of the year or the technology or the culture. Therefore, I would like to share with you words which have inspired me and that I hope will offer you both compass and anchor as you journey on. Also, as I promised, how about a little show and tell to take you back to those beautiful kindergarten days. Well, many of you were in my 5th grade science class. Do you remember what the first page of your notebook said? Louder. We are all scientists. Continue to believe that. My science mantra are the words of Bernard Baruch. Millions saw the apple fall, but only Newton asked why. And I didn't consult with Richard beforehand. Of course, when this fragile stem finally detaches from the branch, the apple plummets towards our planet. For millennium, people took the approach, that's just the way it is. Problem solved, oh-ha. It took a genius to ask the simple and yet audacious question, why should it move at all? And thus the ever-present and yet mysterious concept of gravity was born, and the world was never the same. To me, this begs the questions, what am I missing? What's in front of my nose that I'm not getting? How many other things are out there that are so obvious that I don't see them? There are no computers which have the ability to take on these questions. Certainly after they are asked and explored, technology can easily outstrip our puny minds in the crunching of numbers or information. But we are really back in the 17th century with Newton and Shakespeare and Michelangelo, great company, when it comes to asking the right questions and relying on our sense of wonder. Don't let the complexity of your world ever convince you that there are no great new ideas waiting the right thinker. Stay alive to possibility and always be careful that you do not become fooled into believing that the unrelenting, super fast, in touch, what's next culture that surrounds you has all the answers. Set aside productive and creative time, not dominated by digital hum. And who knows what you might see that millions don't. You're going off to spend 4 great years in an environment where thinking rules. Take advantage. Exercise and expand your gray matter at every opportunity. And yet, do not neglect that part of you, which hopefully here at Doane Stuart you have begun to recognize as bigger and deeper than the sometimes trudging reality of everyday life. It is the echo of your kindergarten self, still wanting to believe and trust. It needs to be nourished. Maybe there will be days when you will feel like Walt Whitman, who writes about his reaction to a lecture by a learned astronomer. He describes beautifully the necessary tedium involved in true understanding. When the proofs, the figures were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams to add, divide, and measure them. And yet on this day, the poet grows tired of the learning. Till rising and gliding out, I wandered off by myself in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars. Please note that I am not encouraging you to skip any classes. However, there is a life beyond the intellect. We all need to find those moments of perfect silence. A week from today, I will be in my favorite place on planet Earth, the Grand Canyon of the Colorado. 7 miles wide, 1 mile deep. A hike to the river is a journey to rocks which are 1 billion years old. It has been called 10,000 cathedrals rolled into one. I find my perfect silence there. On my last visit, I hiked a little used wilderness trail to the rim of the inner canyon. And as I sat in awe of the views, scuttering clouds moving across the sun cast ever-changing shadows, which seemed to glide like prehistoric monsters across a landscape that was already elemental. Instinctively, I turned to share the moment and realized that I was totally alone, except for a kaibab squirrel scampering near the cliff edge, a white-tailed deer grazing in the distance, and a buzzard hovering above me on the canyon's brambles. This was their home. And yet, of the 4 of us, only I was awed by the canyon's beauty. Only I could contemplate the history and science involved in its formation. Only I could reflect on my role and the sliver of time we each share. Our species stands alone. You are gifted with the capacity to wander beyond the physical. Continue to explore that mystery within you. The poet Browning put it like this: "Ah, that a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's ahead of for." I guess what I'm saying is, if you choose to be an atheist, always try to be a spiritual one. The heavens are not just for poets and philosophers. In 1961, I remember a young American president's bold words: "I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon." I was a teenager in Ireland, but the audacious power of that statement still gives me chills, not just as a scientist, but as a member of the human race. A whole generation of inspired people responded to the challenge with confidence and confidence and commitment, but also, I am sure, with honest and humble doubts, given the overwhelming scope of the task. This rather sorry cell phone of mine, which has much more computing power than was available to the Apollo 11 mission. Your washing machine is more sophisticated. If it means anything to you, we went to the moon on 64 kilobytes of memory and 0.043 megahertz of processing power. I say we because it is a human achievement. I'm sure there are some who doubt the rationale for such a venture, but once in a while I would encourage each of us to walk out on a moon at night and gaze up at a place where members of our species once walked. I deliberately left off a part of Kennedy's speech. He actually stated the goal as landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth. That may seem like a no-brainer, and yet to anyone planning such a mission, it is more than just a given. When it comes to space, getting there is hard, getting back is exponentially harder. All of the systems and hardware and fuel and equipment has to be multiplied, with all of the added potential for failure. It is serious rocket science. Sometimes when my students hand in work which is sloppy and casual and not reflective of their ability, I will be heard to yell, "That's not what got us to the moon." For a generation long removed from those exciting times, I believe that there are still valuable lessons to be learned from the Apollo mission. So what did get us to the moon? First, there is a dream, so necessary to any great accomplishment. The bold statement of a lofty goal. But note that it is tempered with reality. Just going was not enough. We needed to return safely. All worthy endeavors require a bold vision, but must always be grounded in the practical. Beware the confusion of mere words with active reality. Secondly, there is the patient, steady effort required. Sleeves need to be rolled up, and hands had to get dirty, which inevitably involved a lot of dead ends and grunt work. The giant leap, which Armstrong celebrated 8 years after Kennedy's speech, and incredibly just 6 months before the end of the decade, could also be measured as the accumulation of countless baby steps back to Earth. Beware the assuming that little things don't matter. Finally, there is the recognition that technology is only as useful as the desire, determination, and integrity of the user. Ingenuity, creativity, and common sense are vital qualities which easily trump cyber power. Beware the linking of your success to the latest gadget. Then onwards to the moon. Then there was Apollo 13. 5 words which have been hijacked by a culture and perhaps have lost some of their power to impact still touch me deeply today. They are surely the most godforsaken words ever uttered by a member of a species. Coming as they did from a metal container about the size of a passenger car, almost 250,000 miles away from Earth. I'm speaking about the words, "Houston, we've had a problem." In those 5 words, I see confirmation of the human experience, that we are ultimately flawed. Robbie Burns laid it out bluntly in words which I cannot resist sharing today. The best laid plans of mice and men aft gan agley. Can you say it better? You're old enough to know already that life comes with problems built in. It's almost certain that in your life you will deal with personal situations which in context are as devastating as Apollo 13. That's the bad news. However, as I reflect on those 5 words, I do find good news which I'd like to share. First, there is the clear, certain acknowledgement that something is wrong. We've had a problem. It seems simple, but defining the situation openly is always a necessary step towards dealing with whatever lies ahead. Another lesson is clear if you listen to the audio of Jack's figure. You will not detect whining or panic or confusion, even though we are certainly entitled to those reactions. There is a controlled effort to avoid wasting precious energy, which will be needed to tackle the solution. Thirdly, it is important to realize that the calm was helped by the knowledge that many months have been spent before the mission anticipating and reacting to potential problems. Even in this extreme situation, there was a roadmap. This is usually the case with most of the challenges we face in life, despite the temptation to believe that we are totally and uniquely adrift. And then there's the truism that most of us who grew up with the soundbite, "Houston, we've had a problem," are totally oblivious to the hours and hours of thoughtful audio which follows, as the problem is examined from every angle and the unexpected failure is processed. The problem became manageable. Runners have a saying, "No problem is so big that you can't run away from it." In fact, a month ago on those trails, I needed to run away from the demands of the speech, which came right at a busy time when there was so much else to balance. But here I am today. Running away is not about defeatism, but an opportunity to gain some necessary distance and perspective. And finally, there's that key word, Houston. Those 3 lonely astronauts knew that they were not alone and could count completely on the support, expertise, and encouragement of a whole team back on Earth. If you watch the movie Apollo 13, then you know they made it back with some drama. For me, this historic incident speaks to some important strategies which can help us all deal with moments when the going is tough. Honestly acknowledge and identify problems. Avoid wasting energy on what can't be changed. Believe that your problem is not impossibly unique. Find ways to step back and gain perspective. Trust in the support of caring people who are on your side. Good lessons for college and beyond. This is a walking stick, and it's very similar to one that my grandfather used. Let me explain. Growing up in Ireland, I spent my summers in an amazing little cottage on the Antrim coast. It was ancient stone, whitewashed to brilliance, and perched on a cliff edge. In front, small fields gave way to chalk and basalt abruptness of the Antrim Plateau. To the rear, a rocky shore was constantly pounded by the waves of the Irish Sea, which stretched to the outline of Scotland in the distance. As my hometown of Belfast descended into violent sectarian chaos, this little haven was temporary respite for my extended family. It was paradise for a young boy to explore the hills and woods and shore. Given the location, sometimes great blustery gales would blow in from the sea, and it seemed like the little house was clinging to the land. On such days, our young adventures would be curtailed, and we would huddle around the turf fire and read or play games. But always after dinner, my grandfather would reach for his cap and oilskins and walking stick, and arm in arm with my granny would take their nightly walk. We watched from the window as they leaned into the wind and disappeared in the swirling rain. A half hour later, the outside elements would come pouring in on their return as my grandfather fought to close the door. I waited then for ritual words which still had the power to bring me back. As he shook out his clothing and tamed his wild hair, my granddad would say, "I'm so glad to be back, I'm glad I went." To a young boy, those words were always confusing, but also magical and mysterious. I'm so glad to be back, I'm glad I went. Why go at all if the only satisfaction was in the return? I'm a lot older now, but the words still retain their mystery for me, although experience has taught me that they capture a profound truth about living. My grandfather never knew the philosopher Nietzsche, and no doubt would have choice words for such cerebral pursuits. But together they shared a common realization. Nietzsche's version is, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. It's a recognition that we grow by sometimes taking on the thing we'd rather avoid. Often we only see the benefits when it is over. Again, as a runner, I have to dig deep mentally to leave the house on training days when the weather tells me that I'm going to be the only pro out there. And yet, at mile 22 of the marathon, days like that surface as tremendous inner strength. As high school seniors, you are beginning some wonderfully alive and life-filled years. You feel invincible and invulnerable, and nothing seems impossible. That's the natural order. And yet, as you stretch yourself in different ways in the years ahead, always be conscious of the potential outcome, so that later, on reflection, you can say that you are stronger. This is not about mindless risk-taking. You will face a lot of choices which appear liberating, but have the potential to begin to kill the spirit and the spark of who you are and leave you less complete. Believe that making the tougher, ethical choices will always bring you back. Glad that you left. Get out your walking stick. This is turf. Those Irish archaeologists actually did not find nothing. They probably found turf. If you climb to the summit of the Antrim Plateau, which I described earlier, you come upon a rolling upland of heather-covered bog. Beneath the surface, ancient vegetation is slowly decaying and producing a rich black sludge which when dry hardens into a fuel which has given warmth and light to many simple homes. That energy supply plus the all-important potato helps sustain the Irish nation. In his poem Digging, the Northern Irish poet Seamus Heaney describes with careful detail his father's skill with the spade in the potato patch. The coarse knee nestled in the lug, the shaft against the inside knee was leaving firmly. And he recalls his grandfather's prowess in the turf bog, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving sods over his shoulder, digging down and down for the good turf, digging. Heaney celebrates his past. My God, the old man could handle a spade just like this old man. And then the poet acknowledges that times have changed. But I have no spade to follow men like that. Heaney concludes with simple, bold, and then a necessary statement. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I'll dig with that. Seamus Heaney dug so well that in 1995 he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature, something which would have been unimaginable to the diggers who went before him, and yet impossible without them. For me, it is a beautiful lesson in how we are all part of a great continuum. The flow of time is really about not losing touch with the essentials which are necessary to help us as our species progresses. Tools and technologies may change, but we each have to find something to dig with, and then to simply do it as well as we can. The task of constructing a good poem, of writing an exceptional paper, of solving a complex equation, of designing an innovative computer program, of bending the soccer ball, or of writing an original piano piece, require the same old-fashioned timeless craft and effort as digging turf or potatoes. Don't be distracted by a helter-skelter runaway world of technological wonders, which seldom stops to ask where it is going. The secret still must be to dig deep within you and feel the spade solid and true. And so your last class at DS is complete. No quiz, no test, no grade. Instead, let me just finish with some wishes. I wish you moments when you rise above the millions. I wish you mystical, moist night air. I wish you dreams that will get you to the moon. I cannot diminish the problems ahead, but I wish you cool runnings and the strength to always face them with confidence and trust. I wish you the courage to lean into the wind and the grace to always come back stronger. And I wish you the wisdom to know what you will dig with. And finally, as you go out today into a world which is knee-deep in June and waist-high in possibilities, I wish you Godspeed and great success. Thank you.
Is given to honor seniors for superior academic achievement, which has been demonstrated by attainment of the highest cumulative academic standing. And wouldn't you know, these kids just made things more difficult for us by having 4 of them have exactly the same average. Well, anyway, this year's award is given to 4 students: Tim Halterman, Ryan Wan, Lacey Phibbs, and Dan Hodgkinson.
I'm presenting the Doane Stuart Award. The Doane Stuart Award is given by the Board of Trustees to the graduate who, while best exemplifying the ideals of the school, has made a positive contribution to the life of Doane Stuart. This year's award is given to Dan Hodgkinson.
great pleasure of announcing the names of the graduates in the class of 2000. Ryan Jeffrey Armstrong.
Christine Marie Ferrer.
Christian Austin Dennert.
Forrest Lawton Enmars.
Kush Mukesh Bansawala.
Amy Nasha Gao Lowe's.
Alexander Joseph Guzman.
Timothy James Halterman.
Aiden Joseph Hamid.
Timothy John Hanley.
Kylie Elizabeth Higgins.
Daniel Connor Hodgkinson.
Hi.
Elizabeth Christine Kuchera.
Tyra Hussein Marquez.
Zachary Thurgood Marley Wright.
Dominic Richard Murata.
Andrew James McFerrin.
Marcus Seichi Nakao.
Lacey Taylor Fitz.
Christopher Kenji Butcher Reynolds.
Noah Jefferson Reinhardt.